But I mean, everything
Good morning, everyone. We're going to give a couple minutes to finish up the coffee line, and then we'll get started. So if everyone could move in, we have a lot of seats up front that are just waiting for some residents. So it is not church. Dave assures you it's not church, right, Dave? Yeah, Dave is not going to preach. Wow. Fire and brimstone. Jerry, there's plenty of room up here. You just come on. Why is it that no one will sit in the front? They're all a couple more people in that coffee line.
It sounds like maybe it's a question and answer.
Silence your phone. I think it is.
do I need to contact? It is. Teresa said there was somebody I need to contact about getting a motel room in Davenport.
Yes, I will. I'll forward you the one where we're staying.
Okay. I don't think you're staying at the same place, are you?
Teresa and I?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, well, forward that to me.
Did she say we were?
She said, well, Kitty's staying here and I'm over here. It was, well,
I'll check
just
with her.
send it to me and I'll take care of it. And we're going to drive the president's car. She's the president doesn't know her.
Okay. Well, Teresa Creasy is going to be the first to sit in the front row. The front row. So Doug Kuzel is standing over there in line, so I guess he gets the front row. Yeah, Doug wants us to hold until we have coffee, but we'll leave the coffee line open while we get through the introductions. So good morning, and welcome to the 2021 Opperman Distinguished Alumni Lecture. The Opperman Lectures are funded through an endowed gift from the late Dwight D. Opperman, who attended Dakota Wesleyan in 1947 and 1948. He went on to earn a law degree from Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, which also has an endowed Opperman Lecture. Opperman held various administrative and management posts for West Publishing House, eventually being named CEO. The Opperman Distinguished Alumni Lecture Series was created to expose current DW students to alumni who have found success in their professions. I'm pleased to introduce to you today Dave and Deanell Backlund as our 2021 Opperman Distinguished Alumni Lecturers. Dave and Deanell are no strangers to Mitchell or the DWU family. They are both graduates of the class of 1970 and former members of the Board of Trustees. Deanell is retired from teaching English at Mitchell Middle School, and Dave was co-owner of D E Vending. They are now owners of Wild Oak Golf Club, the home of the DWU Tiger golf teams. The Backlunds remain active members of the community and have volunteered their time and efforts to many organizations. The Backlunds are generous supporters of DWU students through scholarships and athletics. Most recently, Dave and Deanell made a major gift in support of the new School of Business, Innovation, and Leadership. Last evening, Dave and Deanell were honored as distinguished alumni from the Ron and Sheila Gates College of Business, Education, and Social Sciences. So please join me in welcoming Dave and Deanell Backlund.
Being a teacher, I'm going to start with a handout for you. You may have to share. If you look at the side that says, "My name is teacher," welcome all of you. As I look in these more front rows, it's like being back at a class at Wesleyan, because there's so many of my classmates here and friends. And my favorite man in the world, Jeff Harris, is standing back there. He works for Wesleyan. And welcome to you students, too. I hope some of you are looking to pursue a career in education. And there's Mr. Follett and Mr. Hoff back there, too, back with the students. How appropriate. Okay, my name is teacher. My name is teacher. I am a professional who has the most sacred of jobs. I teach your children, who are the future. When they come into my classroom, who knows what they may become? Am I working with an Einstein, a Da Vinci? Is there a Nobel Prize laureate in the third row? A Martin Luther King in the back by the pencil sharpener? My name is teacher. I am a mentor who hands students new challenges in learning, and when their eyes light up in recognition of understanding, my heart rejoices. I clap out loud at their enthusiasm, and in my mind I turn cartwheels, only in my mind, when they ask for more math, more science, more Spanish, more music. My name is teacher. I am the policeman who breaks up the fight in the playground, or the counselor who listens to the sobs of a sophomore, pregnant and newly sensing a loss of hope and isolation of peers. I am the one who calls social services because a child brings bruises with her books this morning. I am the mother who cries with a high school junior when she doesn't make the show choir. I am the father who fears his son will quit school. My name is teacher. I motivate, participate, tolerate, and evaluate. I direct, develop, practice, confront, cry, reflect, include, support, and invite dreamers into my classroom. I laugh and dearly love this dance that we call learning. Knowing that a child has learned and has especially enjoyed the journey keeps me young and coming back year after year. It is the excitement in the air at a football game on homecoming night, being entertained by a drum line at a basketball game, wearing outfits so loud they need no playing of drums. It's the fifth grader signing my yearbook, filled with words that would rival Emily Dickinson. It is the first grade girls asking if I want to come and skip with them or race them to the swings. There's a feeling of success or heaven or both. My name is teacher. And at the bottom, I give credit from where this came. So please note, Mary Ann was a classmate of mine. She married Dr. Shirley, who was the head of the music department here at Dakota Wesleyan. Allison Shirley Palmer is her daughter, and she was a student of mine. She is too is a graduate from Wesleyan, and she teaches in the Mitchell Public Schools. So I thought this was very appropriate. Okay, thank you, thank you. You want to come up here now? A little bit about my background so that you kind of know where I'm coming from. I was from a small town called Gettysburg, South Dakota. I'm the oldest of four. I have three brothers. There was never a question in my family that we would go to college. Both my mother and father went to college. My grandmothers got that one-year teaching certificate, you know, when you got out of high school, and they became elementary teachers. So it was just always understood that that would be a part of my life. The next big decision I faced was where to go to school. Being from a small town like Gettysburg, I didn't want USD or SDSU. They were simply too big, and I didn't want to get lost. Dakota Wesleyan had a president at that time, Dr. Jack Early, and he came and spoke to my Methodist MYF. And I was so enamored with him. He recited a poem called The Hands of the Master. I'll never forget it. Anyway, he and the minister at my church were friends, and so they offered me a scholarship, so I came to Dakota Wesleyan. That's where I met my husband, Dave. I started my degree in English because my high school English teacher was such an influence on me. She really opened up the world for me. After Wesleyan, I needed to get a job in Mitchell because, as my husband has told many of you, he had to cram 4 into 5. And we wanted to get married that summer when he was supposed to graduate, and I did. So anyway, I got a job student teaching at Mitchell Middle School during my senior year, and then went on and became employed by them for the next 33 years. So that was a very good thing. I retired after teaching for 33 years. I was 55, and my youngest son was graduating from high school, and I had it figured out from the day he was born that I would be able to retire and do the next thing that I love best, which is traveling. So I have traveled extensively since 2003, and I even get Dave to go with me sometimes, so that's a good thing too. Anyway, I'm going to let Dave talk a little bit now. You kind of know my background and my teaching career, and then he and I will go back and forth and talk a little bit about our lives after 2003.
I'm sorry, but I forgot my teleprompter this morning, so you're going to have to live with what comes out. if that's all right. My background is I grew up in Anson County, about 3 miles south of here and 3 miles east, and I went to a one-room schoolhouse with 8 grades and 1 teacher. We had probably as many as 30 kids at one time, and I know in today's world, if some of you parents would see, they would tell you that you're going to go to a one-room schoolhouse with 30 kids, and they'd go, really? So, and I see a bunch of you in here that can probably relate to that. So that's a little bit of my background where I grew up. It was called Rosedale Number 2, and it was a series of small schools, and I graduated from grade school, so to speak, in 1962. My dad had an 8th grade education, highly motivated to see us kids succeed. My mother was born in Ethan, South Dakota, if for most of you that are here know where Ethan is, but she ended up going to stay with one of her aunts in Highmore, South Dakota, so she could graduate from high school because they lived on the farm and didn't have a way to get back and forth. So for some of you younger people, maybe some of that seems like a little bit of a far-fetched, but it actually happened. I went to Mitchell High School, started in 62, graduated in 66. I wrestled for Joe Lepore, who later became the coach here, and that is the main reason I came to Dakota Wesleyan, is because he came here and offered me a scholarship, and it was a huge one, $250. But in 1966, $250 went a long ways. I think, if I remember correctly, the tuition here at that time was about $350 a semester, just for tuition. So it was a little bit different times than it is today. But we could work in the summertime and make almost enough money to go to school. So, you know, those were times that were probably not any easier than they are today, but they were a little bit financially more doable than the tuition of today. I started teaching school when I graduated in 71. They keep telling me I graduated in 70, but I didn't. So I started teaching school. I went to White Lake, and I coached and taught from 71 to 74. Good years. I refereed a lot, and I see Jerry Miller's here, who I refereed with for I don't know how many years, but we had a lot of good times. So that's kind of my beginning background. I don't know, Deanell, you want to keep going from there or whatever? Or you want me to keep going? Well, I taught, and then after I taught school, I became an insurance adjuster for 4 years, or 5. And I got that job because we had a hailstorm here in Mitchell, and I had quit my job at White Lake. I couldn't quite get along with the superintendent, and I just had enough, so I quit. We had a hailstorm, and the guy that adjusted our house, we were talking about, he asked me what I was doing. I told him I was unemployed. And he said, well, we're looking for an adjuster. So anyway, I went and applied for the job and got it, and I adjusted insurance for 4, 5, 6 years. So that was kind of the start of the business part of my career. And in 1979, my business partner and I, we took a leap of faith and borrowed a bunch of money, and which we thought was a bunch of money at the time. And
that's where I interrupt. He came home one day and said, I'm going to take a second mortgage out on our house. And I said, your what? Are you kidding? This is all we have. And his response was?
Well, what she forgot to understand is that if you pay on a house for 2 years, and today in the world back then, you didn't have any vested interest in it anyway. So the second mortgage on the house was kind of a moot point. But it was pretty hard for her to understand that. I'm not sure even maybe I understood it fully at the time. So it was something that it was something that, you know, I don't know why we did it. We just thought it would work, and we did. So in the other thing that we had the influences from our parents, we had an option to take a fixed mortgage on a loan, and if my memory serves me right, it was like 9.5%, and that was in '79. And by '81, as most of you remember, or a lot of you that are here remember,
These seats remember up here.
it was, I think the interest rate went finally to 22%. So if we would have not taken the fixed interest rate that we did, by probably the early '80s, we'd have been broke, because there's no way we could have ever survived that. And that's what happened with the farm crisis. A lot of you here remember, or you probably had parents or relatives or whatever that went through that era. But so you look at what is luck and what is fate. It kind of makes you think about, what happened. Why did we take a fixed rate instead of a floating rate? But that's the way it goes.
Go ahead. So anyway, he borrows this money and bought out a local vendor and started D E Music. That was quite a hassle. What are we going to name this company we have? We were so original. D is for Dave, E is for Elroy. Very creative. But anyway, it was a good business because it was just at the start of the video games. Pong, I don't know if I hardly remember Pong, but we all remember Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man, and that was the beginning of that. So it was a great time to be in the video business. And at that time, the business included candy machines, cigarette machines, jukeboxes, all of those kinds of things, which of course have gone away over the last years, but the video lottery business has continued.
So '79 was when we started in business. '89, like she alluded to the Pac-Man and all of the boom of the video years. They were, I don't know at the time if we even realized what was going on. It was the start of cell phones and that type of communications that, was kind of a pie in the sky type thing to all of us. We all heard about it as kids. You kids, and I'm going to call you kids, and don't be offended if I do that, because you are to me, but you remember, phones and things like that. We used pay phones, and we had black and white TVs. Now, I know I'm preaching to you a little bit on that, but that's just kind of how it was, and I don't think we really realized what was going to happen with this technology thing. And technology has, they keep saying that it's going to change drastically in the next 20 years. I don't know how it can, but I guess maybe it will. But those types of things are what we did and what we went through. Was it good or bad? I think for the most it was good. It was very good for us. The other things that I have done, and some of this I don't think is really relevant, but we've been involved in, we bought a old hatchery out here west of town 5 miles, and we raised chickens, and we raised mushrooms, and we did some of that type of stuff, and some of the stuff was good and some of it was bad. And that had to be in the mid-'80s probably. Then in '89 is when the legalized gambling started in South Dakota. And we got involved in that pretty heavy. I
want to interject something here about the legalized gambling. most states in the United States that were going with the legalized gambling were doing it out of a company in North Carolina. So those revenues were all going there. And my husband and the other South Dakota vendors in our region said, no, that's wrong. Why are we sending all that money to North Carolina? So he literally spent 2 winters in Pierre lobbying the legislators to convince them that if this was a successful venture, South Dakota needed to be getting the revenues from all of that, not sending it to North Carolina. So that was 2 years of his life.
I'll correct what she just said. It was not North Carolina because South Dakota was the first. We were the first state in the U.S. to legalize what we now know as video lottery. There was some other things going on, but South Dakota was the first. So it was kind of a pilot program, I guess, if you want to say that. The one thing that we tried to do was keep everything so people in South Dakota had some opportunities to be able to do it. Tried to keep the, if you want to say, the big boys out of it. We succeeded in that for quite a while. But that is how the gambling part of South Dakota started. Montana then followed. Now, wait a minute, Tom. Maybe I better back up here a little bit. Montana might have started before South Dakota, and then we were the second one. Because that it doesn't matter, but that's kind of how the evolution came about. Now, whether the gambling is a good thing for the U.S. or not, it always remains to be seen, but it sure looks like that's the way it ended up, and so we were a part of that. 89, like I said, was the beginning of gambling. And then we did some, like I said, we did the bets thing, the chickens, the mushrooms. We bought another vending company in Huron, South Dakota called Manford Music. We did that just before gambling started, so that had to be 87, 88. Then we bought Hasvolt Vending in Sioux Falls, or a piece of it, with another gentleman that was involved in the original gambling equipment that we bought. So that was kind of just an expansion of what we did. We also owned, or we bought a piece of ground in Colorado, in Blackhawk, Colorado, and built a casino. Started with that in about probably, I would say in the 90, I don't know, don't make any difference exactly. It was in the 90s sometime. Anyway, we operated that for 7, 8, 10 years, and then we got out of that. It was kind of it was a good thing, bad thing. I mean, it was one of those things that sometimes you got to say, you gotta get out when the getting's good. You gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them, as not Johnny Cash would say, but Kenny Rogers would say. So we kind of folded them and we got out. We bought the golf course in the 90s. That was kind of just kind of off the spur of the moment thing, but you know, the one thing we always had to remember is that we had D E Music, and that was our cash cow. So we had the opportunities to be able to do some of those things. Some of them were good, and some of them were bad. And like I've always said in business, if you come up with 50% more good ones than bad ones, as long as the monetary value is about equal, it works. If it doesn't, you got a big problem. We bought the golf course, excuse me, and then we built another.
I also said the golf course was a good thing, because by then David kind of he had a manager at D&E and was running things well. And by owning a golf course, it kept him, his mother called it Dave's Farm, and I thought it kept him out of the bars.
It did, but what you forgot is I was in the bars every day when I was operating routes, so it was kind of, it was whatever. But The golf course, we expanded it from a 9-hole course into an 18-hole course in the 90s. Started a housing development, which I didn't know if I wanted to get into the real estate business, but I guess we did. I had a guy tell me one time, he said, if you're going to be in the real estate business or development business, you got to have thick skin. So, and there's a lot of truth to that. So, because it seems like every dog and every problem that happens on your property or property around that you own is your fault. So, if you ever want to get in the development business, just remember that there's a lot of other things that are involved in whether it could be somebody's car parked on the street versus, well, we don't allow motorhomes to park overnight to, you can go on and on and on and on and on about that. But anyway, also in the 90s, we bought a gentleman out here southeast of town or southwest of town and bought a hunting operation. And so we've been involved in that for the last, 15, probably 18 years. And one of our sons, our youngest son, Doug, runs that. So that's been it's been a lot of fun. Oh, I'll back up a little bit on the golf course. Our oldest son, David, now runs the golf course. He is the pro shop manager and does that. So that's kind of satisfying in a lot of ways to have your kids be able to kind of follow in your footsteps. I'm not sure they both think it's great, but they seem to do all right with it. Like I said, and last night Kitty said it quite well, and I didn't know if she didn't think she'd use that when I said there's 2 things in life I think everybody should do. And that's be on a church board and own a bar. And I've done both. So it's just something that gives you a little different perspective on life, good or bad, because it is what it is. And sometimes you find the same kind of people on a church board as you do in the bar. So it is what it is. The difference is when you're on the church board, you think most of them are sober. That's right, Kitty. The last things that I'm going to say,
I have something I want to do at the end, but you go ahead.
Okay. I guess the point of this whole thing is, if you are fortunate enough and you work hard enough, there are things in life you can accomplish. Now, fate or whatever you want to call it, odds, there are a lot of things in life that interfere with the things we think are going to be good and going to be bad. Health, there's just a whole bunch of things can happen to you. But if you are fortunate enough to be able to make some money and live the way you want to live, give back a little bit. We all know people that have done very well in life and don't give a thing back. And I don't just mean financially, but also, there's other things you can do that you can give back and be a good citizen, a good whatever you want to call it. But it's kind of something that I've always felt, and I think I learned that from my folks, that their means was very small, but they gave a lot of time to different organizations, church, the community clubs, neighbors. I can remember a lot of that kind of stuff. So I think that's important, and I think the kids, the young people here, excuse me, I won't call you kids, have to remember that. And some of you will become very, very successful in whatever you do, and some of you will probably take the road that are the hard knocks, and things maybe don't work out quite so well. And I've seen some awfully good people that have tried and tried and tried, and it just doesn't ever quite work for them. But you know what? That don't mean you're bad or you're a failure or whatever. So keep that in the back of your head as you go forward.
we are going to take some questions, but I would like you to turn over I Am Teacher, and if you would listen to it starts out, this is an actual message that was on an answering machine at a school in Australia. And for those of you that are teachers, you're going to really enjoy it. And for those of you back there that are potential teachers, welcome to the game.
Hello, you have reached the automated answering service of your school. In order to assist you in connecting to the right staff member, please listen to all the options before making a selection. To lie about why your child is absent, press 1. To make excuses for why your child did not do his homework, press 2. To complain about what we do, press 3. To swear at staff members, press 4. To ask why you didn't get information that has already been enclosed in your newsletter and several flyers that have been mailed to you, press 5. If you want us to raise your child, press 6. If you want to reach out and touch, slap, or hit someone, press 7. To request another teacher for the 3rd time this year, press 8. To complain about bus transportation, press 9. To complain about school lunches, press 0. If you realize this is the real world and your child must be accountable and responsible for his or her own behavior, classwork, and homework, and that it's not the teacher's fault for your child's lack of effort, hang up and have a nice day. If you want this in another language, move to a country that speaks it. Thank you for your interest in public education.
I think that's great. The other thing I want to mention is, and I probably have touched on it along the way, but I think giving back is probably as important as doing. And all of us here, because of some of the backgrounds we've had, we all look at things like colleges and kids, but churches and etc. But please, if you have the opportunity, even if you don't have the finances, you got you. So please give back, and I think that's probably the most important thing that happens. I guess in closing, I'm going to say somebody told me I wasn't supposed to take any questions, so I'm not going to.
Well, Dave, that's not the way it's going to be. Yeah. So do we have any questions for Dave and Deanell? Yes.
I don't have a question.
It's a comment.
I want to attest to the fact that he's Mr. Generosity. I go to his church. I've known Dave since
Yes.
the neighborhood days. And I call him Mr. Food Pantry.
Yes, Mr. Food Pantry.
He's so generous
Yeah.
in his time and his money.
Yes. I've seen Dave working at the food pantry too, and hauling food around, especially during the pandemic. I've seen those big food, and you've been very involved in that. So thank you, Dave. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Doug. Both of you have to come back up front. Uh-oh. Oh, sure. Yep, just a minute. Hold on, Doug. We're going to give you the microphone.
You shouldn't do that.
I know. This is dangerous.
So I've known you two for 51 years plus. And we've traveled together, we've skied together. Dave and I shipped cattle together in Texas. I've seen all different kinds of sides of you. I've seen it again today where you interrupt each other. And I've always heard this rumor, and I'm pretty sure it's true, that when major decisions, and this was supposedly the golf course, when that happens, the discussion goes from the house to the garage, and the voice raises pretty high. Would you confirm that's true, Deanell?
Yes.
Tell us a little more about it.
Hold on. We're going to get the microphone back.
We had a foreign exchange student back in 1986, and of course both of our boys were rather young. And I don't know, we disagreed on something, I don't even remember what it was. And we didn't want to yell and scream in front of our children, and especially we have this 18-year-old boy from Sweden living with us. So Dave said, come on. I said, where are we going? Come on, we're going to the garage. So we went out in the garage and had the doors all shut and had it out with one another. And our neighbors across the street heard us. And they have not let us live it down, and that's how Doug knows the story. So trust me, you know, it's a give and take. I mean, all you married people in here know some days you want to kill them, but they want to kill you too. I mean, it's a two-way street, totally.
So we tagged it Garage Talks.
Yes.
Dave, can you talk a little bit about
Sorry, I can't get
a couple of things? Timing, which obviously your timing was good. But another thing is risk.
We need to repeat the question.
And taking a risk.
Well, I think Deanell alluded to the risk when we started.
Tell Jim's question.
Oh, Jim asked about timing and risk. And to me,
If you don't take a risk, you're never going to.
correct. The timing and risk to me are kind of go hand in hand. As we all know, certain things, timing is everything. And if you miss it by a minute or a week or a day or 2 months or whatever, you missed. Now, other risks are, they can go on for months, maybe years, because it's an idea more than a risk. But when I talked about the interest rates and so on and so forth, those things are, you know, you kind of don't have a lot of control over those. I mean, a lot of economists like to tell us that, you know, we know this is going to happen. Well, if you look in 2021 and you go back to 2000, pick a date, 2001, and who knew that interest rates were going to be 1% or less? Who knew that? If you did, if any of you guys back there know that, and you got an inside track with the big guy up above, you better get on it, because you can become a multi-billionaire overnight. So all the economists and things like that, to me, Jim, are risk and timing. Your timing is when you have the opportunity to do it. It's like buying the quarter of land next to your dad's place. You get one opportunity to buy it, and if you don't have the money, you don't buy it. Or the house next door to you, or whatever it might be. So timing and risk. Timing can be financially right for you. Risk can be the same thing. Does it work for you? When you got zero, in my mind, when you start with zero, your risk is what? Zero. So now when you start at my age at 73 and you have some net worth and you take a big risk, is that timing? Could be bad timing. So I think you have to evaluate that on your own. And some people, I've got a son that's a kind of an economist type thinking guy, and he likes to watch the stock market, and he plays this and he plays that, and he's good at it. He's good with numbers. He's way better with numbers than I am. But he gets spooky because he goes, well, you know, the stock market's doing this today. Well, I know it's going to go down tomorrow. She's got a brother like that. And so I don't have an answer for that, Jim, totally. Does that not answer my question or your question?
Well, I'm only saying is if you don't take the risk,
You have to.
you can do fine.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
You're not going to necessarily go like that. But you can also, with that risk, you can also plummet. It can go both ways.
Correct. So risk, Anna.
I was just going to say that I've found that I've learned more from my failures than my successes. And I love Winston Churchill's quote that success is going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm.
That's an excellent way to put it. Excellent way to put it.
Say that in the microphone, Dave, so that Facebook people can hear it.
And if I'm quoting correctly, Winston Churchill said, from failure to success is from failure.
Going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm.
from going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. That's a good way. I don't know if I've ever heard that. But anyway, that's a good way.
I think part of the risk, too, is that you do that when you're younger. You know, at our age, I'm sorry, but we're not going to go risk a bunch of stuff. It's just not, you know.
Oh, I don't know.
We get up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So you take risk, you've done a lot of that in your life, and you certainly have not had all success.
No.
No?
Ask about the mushrooms and the chickens.
So how do you keep each other going? What makes you say, you know what, we're going to go on to the next one?
And I don't want to sound selfish on this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Some of those things you don't tell your school teacher wife. And I don't know how else to say it, because there's some things she didn't need to know because it gets a little complicated. So that's, and I know that goes against some of our teachings as far as sharing everything with your wife, but in business it's a little bit different. I had partners, and having partners in business is like having a wife. In some ways it might be worse than having a wife. So that's another thing. I guess I'll go to partners a little bit. You only take partners in when you have to do things you can't do, can't afford to do, or don't want to do. That's why you have partners. Other than that, you're probably, if you can swing it yourself, you're better off, in my opinion.
Another thing, too, I was busy with my career, and I was busy raising kids, and I would come home with my education problems, some of which you listen to in the I Am Teacher. And Dave would start on some of his problems, and I'd have to tune him out, because I was on overload with what I was doing. And so it was just best that a lot of those things were not known by me at all. It made for a much harmonious dinner table.
And as you know, my wife is a teacher, obviously. So what do teachers do? Ask a lot of questions. And sometimes the questions really don't need an answer. So that's...
Okay. Take one more question. Anybody else? Oh, Paul.
Yeah, I'd like to know how not only your education, but the relationships you built here at Wesleyan, and your outlook, and how Wesleyan impacted your outlook on life has made a difference in the quality of your lives as you move forward.
Paul's question was how the Wesleyan influence has affected Dave's and my relationship, both personally and professionally, and as a community. To me, Wesleyan opened up doors that I didn't even know existed. I was a small-town girl. I don't know that I'd ever been out of the state when I came to Dakota Wesleyan. And Wesleyan, you know, has a very diverse community. And I was exposed to kids from all over the country, red and yellow, black and white. And it was such an eye-opener for me. And I don't know, Wesleyan was the key to unlock myself. And my roommate, Karen Riley. She's sitting over there. She and I lived together for 4 years. Wesleyan did a great job of pairing us together. But she, too, opened a lot of doors for me, just exposed me to things that I had no clue about in the whole wide world.
Paul, I think the big thing that Wesleyan has done for us, and I think we're very fortunate that we live here. So when we look at the crowd here, like I said last night, I think I knew 50% of the people in there, and I know probably not quite 50% here today, but you make so many relationships that you just can't develop without having personal contacts with people. And that's a big deal. Huge deal.
And I have one story that I want to share about Paul. I was visiting with him yesterday, and he's one of our legislators, local legislators. And as those of you at Wesleyan are well aware, there's $200 million of scholarships available in South Dakota, but private schools were excluded. So if you went to SDSU, USD, you get the picture. Anyway, Paul sat in on the committee, and because I think he's a board member at Wesleyan, he sat on that committee, and by one vote, it passed that Wesleyan, kids coming to Wesleyan can now apply for those $200 million worth of scholarships. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
One more. And like I said last night, I thank all you people, classmates, friends. The other thing, Paul, I'll relate back to what your question again, is you make lifelong, high school kids, you make friends. Some of you have kept lifelong friends through high school, but more of us, in my opinion, we create lifelong friends from college. And I think that's a testimony of the people that I see here today is mainly, they're old college friends. They have been friends all of their life, so that's important.
Join me in thanking Dave and Deanell for, I think we can attest that they have had some unique experiences and have a very unique relationship together that's lasted for 51 years. So thank you for being here. And they will be up here if any of you have questions. Thank you for coming.